The Changeling is a 1980 release supernatural psychological horror directed by Peter Medak.
It stars George C. Scott as John Russell, who is a composer who lives in New York City. And at the start of the film, he's on vacation with his wife and child, and they are killed in a road accident. He then moves to Seattle to take up a job teaching music, and he rents an old, creepy house off a local historical society. It hasn't been lived in for a few years. There's dust sheets everywhere. After a few days, he starts to hear creepy noises. It's like this loud banging sound, and then I think there's things moving on their own. He goes to investigate where this sound is coming from. He finds this boarded up room that's kind of behind some shelves in a cupboard, and in there there's there's a little wheelchair, a child's wheelchair, along with various other things that have obviously been there for a long time. The story goes on from there with more spooky happenings, and they perform a séance, and this spirit reveals itself, and it kind of then it's kind of sort of part horror, part murder mystery. Who what happened to this ghostly child, and why he can't move on.
Yeah,
and
restless spirits.
Exactly. Yes, kind of your classic haunted house.
It is
film, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously we did
The Haunting
quite a while ago. So this is in that territory, haunted house. Spooky things that go bump in the night and whatnot. It's quite an eerie film.
It is, yeah.
It's like 1980s. It's quite old. I do find some of these kind of early 80s films, the acting a little bit hammy at times. George C. Scott, he's a great actor. He's done a lot of great films. Just read off a couple. Obviously, he was in that other quite creepy film that came out a few years later, The Exorcist 3, which is apart from The Exorcist, it's a great film.
Yeah, the good Exorcist sequel.
The good Exorcist sequel, exactly. And he turned up in, he was famously in Patton and The Hustler, loads of films from the 50s, 60s, right up until I think he died in 93. He was in the remake of 12 Angry Men, also directed by William Friedkin. So, lots of films. He was Dr. Strangelove. He was also, unfortunately, he was famous for being, a bit of a drunk, as a lot of those actors were in those times. And he became quite famous for being quite hard to work with. I think Peter Medak wrote or said that he was quite terrified about working with George C. Scott because he knew of this kind of, you don't want to get on the wrong side of him. But apparently he turned out to be, an amazing guy and hard working. Obviously, he's a great actor, and he's quite kind of he's like one of those he brings everything to a role, and he's quite a heavy actor. Hardcore's another one where he plays quite a heavy-hitting character. But, like I said, it's eerie. I mean, we're both big horror movie fans. I've always liked ghost films, although I have trouble watching them because they always scare the life out of me.
I find them the scariest, definitely.
And because they're not, obviously zombies and monsters and things like that, that they're not real. And I know I don't believe in ghosts or the supernatural, but there is that kind of that feeling.
Just maybe.
Just maybe, yeah. And you hear something, you're like, oh, what's that? I work in a castle. I have to lock it up by myself at night, and you do wonder. We have a haunted castle, and I've never seen anything, but you hear something, and you're like, what on earth is that? And this film is really good. It's very suspenseful. There's lots of great moments. There's a moment where he's sitting at his piano. And the camera's looking behind him, and the door just opens ever so slowly, and it's just really eerie. I mean, obviously, if that was any other film, it wouldn't be scary.
No.
Obviously, the timing and the sound effects and everything just kind of work together. And it's really that I always remember that scene. It's creepy, terrifying.
Much like The Haunting, it doesn't rely on jump scares like a lot of sort of these films do these days.
No, there's no jumps. There's no CGI effects in there. You don't really see anything. There is a moment where you see kind of a spectre, I suppose, but it's in a kind of it's not like a figure standing in a hallway or anything like that, which itself can be quite scary too. But like you say, it's more kind of a mystery.
Yeah.
So once you know the house is haunted, he then wants to find out why it's haunted and why this person is contacting him. So the spectre in the house it turns out to be a child.
Yeah.
We won't give spoilers, so we won't give away any of that. But to say that it's a child, I don't think it's a spoiler. And of course, because he has recently himself lost his own child, his daughter, I think there's obviously kind of psychological links to him really wanting to find out what's going on.
And figure out why it's contacting him, and etc. etc. So, and it's obviously quite raw for him.
Yeah,
still having only recently lost his own child. So
yeah, and like a lot of ghost films, this one apparently is based on fact. I think the writer experienced something similar, and so he wrote it into the film. I don't know the details of that case or what happened there. It's eerie, and I watched it. I watched it a few years ago. My brother bought this for me. He bought me like 3 ghost films he didn't think I'd heard of. I hadn't heard of them. I think he got this and was the other, not The Others.
Right.
But a film called The Other.
Right.
And they were like, ghost children, I don't get it. It's freaky. And there was another one he got me. But this one I really liked. And like I said, spine tingling, gave me, keep the light on at night and all that kind of stuff. Apparently Martin Scorsese rates this as like one of his like 11 scariest films of all time. I don't know why he chooses 11. Doesn't stick with a normal 10. Who knows?
Whatever the quality of the film, if it does have a couple of scenes where there's just creepy, ghosty things going on, so even like Paranormal Activity, which isn't the greatest film, it's still certain scenes in that sort of set your hair on end.
Yeah. And of course wheelchairs are never good, especially children's wheelchairs. It's just sitting there in a corner and it's like. Oh,
and there's a ball as well which belonged to his daughter, which makes a few appearances.
Yeah, a bit Shining-esque.
A little bit, yeah.
And what's that other film with the wheelchair in it? Set in a disused or an empty mental asylum, and there are these kind of guys going. I think they're asbestos cleaners, and they're going in to clean this place out. It's a Canadian film, came out a few years ago. It's got Peter, the Scottish actor. Who was in My Name is Joe. I can't remember his name.
Oh, Peter begins with an M.
Yeah, it does.
Mullen.
Yeah. And what was the film?
No idea.
Oh God! It had the kid who was the thief in Empire Records, that '90s film. God. Why do I know this stuff?
I don't know.
But it's a really good film, and there's a wheelchair scene in that, and that film's pretty creepy as well. If you know it, answers on the postcard or in the comments, or I'll just look it up after this. It did begin with an S.
And what was it?
Session 9.
That rings a bell.
It's pretty good actually. It's pretty creepy. I think it's reading reviews online before we did this. A lot of people like this film. A lot of people find it very creepy. I think it's a bit hammy. Obviously, he has this relationship with this woman who's like the woman at the historical society.
Well, yeah, I mean that was one thing that kind of it just felt very of its time. Where obviously George C. Scott was. I think he was like in his late 50s when he made it.
Yeah.
So already, he had quite a young daughter, which obviously is not impossible for someone of his age to have that. But I think it seemed to be quite common in those days for quite older actors to be paired with quite young actresses.
Well, she was his wife in real life.
Oh, was she? Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Then I guess as an actor, they managed to.
No, but I know. Yeah, I know what you mean. That did happen quite a lot, and I think that was probably the age. Cinema, Hollywood, and all that was quite different back then, and lots of kind of old men and much younger women. So because obviously, in those days, in those days, and I think it's maybe things are changing now, but obviously, if you were a woman and an actor in those days, you'd get to like 39, and your career would be over.
Yeah, exactly.
But a man could just carry on going on and on. And I think things are slowly changing nowadays, and it was that was probably how
that was just the norm then, wasn't
it? But
then
in this case, they were actually married. Trish Van Devere, I think her name was, and they like worked about 8 films. I think this was the 8th film they did together. And there's other cast members in there. Melvin Douglas, who's quite a famous actor. You find in kind of his early 80s, you get a lot of actors that have done a huge amount. You did get a lot of films with the kind of older actors, and they'd obviously been around a lot during the 30s, 40s, 50s onwards and stuff. Yeah, if you don't know this one, I recommend you check it out because it's it is good. It's creepy as hell. There's some really nice kind of it's a big house. The house wasn't real. I think the house was real, but then they put on the kind of the front of the house was added to a house that already existed.
Oh, I see.
And they spent like $200,000 putting that on, and it's effective.
It looks convincing, yeah.
It does look convincing. I do like at the beginning of the film. I always these kind of haunted house films. I hate it when the house is out in the middle of nowhere. He gets there and there are like other houses around. You're like, phew. At least if anything happens, you can run out and go to your neighbour and say, "Help! Let me just come in." But I don't ever understand why they then go back into these houses. As soon as that started happening, I'd be out of there. Can't explain it. Get out.
Well, he's George C. Scott. He's not going to take any crap from a ghost, is he?
He's not. He's a hard man. He's not going to take any crap whatsoever.
It's like when he's opening the secret door. I'm like, really? Somebody's boarded that up for a reason? What are you doing, man?
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
get the hell out of there. Just go and rent somewhere else.
Yeah, in fact, that scene is also a bit like The Shining because the camera is looking up at George C. Scott when he's like trying to get through the door.
Yeah.
So maybe it was influenced by The Shining. When did The Shining come out?
Same year.
Or maybe not. Well, you never know.
Who knows?
Anyway,
they're probably in production at the same time.
I guess so. That's true. Maybe they shared notes. Who knows?
I mean, it's possible this was overshadowed a little bit by The Shining.
Peter Medak, of course, we should speak about him. He was a British filmmaker. Well, he came over from Hungary.
Right.
And he worked a lot in Britain. And I mean, over here he made The Craze and Let Him Have It, which is a really good film about I think it was the last man to be hung in this country. Romeo's Bleeding, Gary Oldman, and lots of not a huge amount, but some really quite good films in his career. And we do have it. I have this on DVD. Like I said, my brother bought it for me. He'll be happy that I'm doing this. And this is just it's a normal DVD. Nothing on it
Except the film. Thankfully,
and quite a creepy front cover. Yeah, so is it available on Blu-ray?
It is, yeah. In the States, Severin released it a while ago. In the UK, it was Second Sight. Unfortunately, though, both editions had sort of issues with them. I think they both had audio problems. I think Severin did a replacement disc service, but there was then different problems with that disc. I mean, there must have been a ghost at play or something. Yeah. And then the Second Sight one, I think the stereo track is slightly out of sync with the picture, and the 5.1 track I think had one moment of audio missing. It was just somebody speaking off screen, just one line, and it wasn't on there. So they didn't replace it, but they did re-release it because it was originally released like in a special edition with like a booklet and everything. And when they re-released it without all that stuff, they fixed the disc. Well, they fixed the 5.1. I think the stereo track is still slightly out of sync apparently. I don't know any. I can't. That's only what I've read online about the discs. Just be aware if you go and buy it that's there's those issues. Creepy. But maybe it just adds to the creepiness with everything being slightly out of sync.
Maybe, yeah. Did their studio burn down as well? No,
I don't think so.
Like that. And that was The Changeling. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, let us know in the comments below.
Hit the subscribe button up there if you've enjoyed what you've watched, and don't forget to hit the bell for notifications. There's some other videos to check out over there. Come and find us on Twitter and Facebook, and join us next week for another video.